Dr. Richard Root. He was a 68-year-old doctor and one of the world's top experts in infectious diseases who dedicated his life to saving others. In 2006, he accepted an invitation from the University of Pennsylvania to help train doctors in Botswana, a country devastated by an HIV/AIDS epidemic. Between classes, he took some time to explore the beauty of the region, including a boat ride on the Limpopo River. But the African wilderness, so quiet, sometimes hides deadly surprises. A massive crocodile suddenly came up from under the water and dragged him away. It was instant. There wasn't even time to react. Dr. Root's body was never found, but witnesses reported the attack. Authorities confirmed it. A perfect ambush by an ancient predator. The tragedy shocked the scientific community because Dr. Root wasn't some thrill-seeking adventurer. He wasn't being reckless. He was just enjoying a peaceful outing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Unknown girl. We've already seen that Africa's wild nature can be as mesmerizing as it is unforgiving. In February 2018, a 22-year-old woman, whose identity was never released, was visiting the Dino King Game Reserve in South Africa. The visit wasn't even planned. She had just tagged along with a friend who had a job interview with the sanctuary's manager, the world-famous lion whisperer Kevin Richardson. What was supposed to be a casual day admiring African wildlife quickly turned into a nightmare. That morning, Kevin had taken 3 lions on one of their usual walks, part of a routine program meant to stimulate the animals both mentally and physically. Everything was going fine until an impala darted across the field. One of the lionesses immediately took off at full speed. The chase went on for over a mile before the impala disappeared into the bush. But the lioness's hunting instinct had already been triggered, so she kept going and ended up face to face with the young woman. She was outside the safety fence, distracted, taking pictures. You can probably guess what happened next. She never even had a chance to defend herself. Within seconds, she was critically injured. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but there was nothing they could do. She died before reaching the hospital. Laura Hurst. In the small town of Oxford, Indiana, there was a very unusual house, one that wasn't a home for people, but for snakes. Former Sheriff Ben Munson kept around 140 reptiles there, including several species of exotic snakes. He cared for them, bred them, and even sold some. One of his regular visitors was 36-year-old Laura Hurst. She was passionate about reptiles and even kept 20 of her own snakes at that house, visiting every week to care for them. But in September 2019, it became tragically clear that no matter how well fed or well treated they are, these animals still have their wild instincts. Laura went into the reptile house and never came out alive. Her body was found with a 2.5-meter long reticulated python wrapped around her neck. You can probably guess the rest. The event made headlines across the country.
Woman who was found with a python wrapped around her neck.
Tonight, the Benton County coroner confirms today that Laura Hurst was strangled by the snake.
How could someone so experienced, so careful, become a victim of her own animal? Some speculated the snake killed her wasn't actually one of hers. Reports say a photo Laura had taken the day before showed her next to the python, and Munson later said he didn't recognize that snake as one of hers. But that version was never confirmed by authorities. Mark Lautenbach. In December 2018 at the Madikwe Reserve in South Africa, an adult male elephant in Must, a state where hormone levels spike and aggression peaks, knocked down a fence and stormed into the lodging area of the Leopard Rock Lodge. Trying to prevent disaster, Mark Lautenbach, the manager, a seasoned guide, and a well-respected expert in wildlife, didn't hesitate to confront the massive animal. He knew exactly what needed to be done. He'd handled dangerous situations before, but that day, things didn't go as planned. The elephant was confused, angry, and then suddenly locked eyes with Mark and charged. Mark tried to redirect the animal back to the bush, but it struck him and trampled him repeatedly. The injuries were catastrophic, and sadly, Mark didn't make it. The elephant went on a rampage, destroying everything in its path, and only stopped when reserve guards stepped in to end the situation for good. Stevie Irwin. On September 4th, 2006, Steve Irwin was filming for the documentary Ocean's Deadliest, not knowing it would be the last day of his life. Steve was known as the crocodile hunter, but despite the name, he didn't hunt animals. He rescued them. His mission was to bring people closer to wildlife, even if it meant putting himself at risk. That's exactly what happened that day. He was looking for a tiger shark but couldn't find one, so he decided to film a 2.5-meter wide stingray instead for a different project, Bindi, the Jungle Girl, his daughter's show. He approached the stingray, and there was no real reason to worry. Most experts consider stingrays calm and non-aggressive. They usually only sting in self-defense, typically when stepped on. But then something totally unexpected happened. As he lifted the stingray for the camera, the animal, maybe feeling trapped, attacked. In one swift motion, it stabbed him in the chest. Stingray venom is rarely fatal, but this time it was because the barb pierced his heart. Steve and his crew had a pact. If he was ever injured, he'd signal. If he didn't, they were to keep filming. But Steve didn't give any signal. They rushed back to the boat, and there it became clear he was barely breathing. Minutes later, the crocodile hunter died in the arms of his team. The world was stunned. How could someone who worked with crocs, snakes, sharks, and lions die from a stingray? The footage of the tragedy became an object of obsession. Even if I'm eaten by a shark or a croc, what matters most is that it's filmed. If I die and no one films it, I'll be sad. Those words might sound strange, but they came from Steve himself. So many believed he'd want the footage shown, but Discovery Communications stood firm. The recording would never be released. After the investigation, every copy was destroyed, except for one, reportedly given to Steve's wife, Terry Irwin. Some say she destroyed it too, without ever watching. Today, a low-quality video titled Steve Irwin Last Minutes floats around the internet, but no one knows if it's real. Steve Irwin is gone, but his passion, his legacy, and his courage will never be forgotten. Dawn Brancheau. On February 24, 2010, at SeaWorld Orlando, Dawn Brancheau, one of the park's most experienced and respected trainers, was getting ready to end a performance with Tilikum, a killer whale that at the time was the largest orca in captivity. Their relationship had always appeared to be built on trust, but that day, something was different. At the end of the show, Tilikum grabbed Dawn by the arm and pulled her into the water. The attack was horrifying. Tilikum tossed her around like a rag doll and refused to let go for over 45 minutes. By the time rescuers recovered her body, it was far too late. The tragedy shook SeaWorld and stunned the world, but for many, it wasn't exactly a surprise. Tilikum had already been involved in 2 other deadly incidents, yet he kept performing for crowds, with unsuspecting trainers by his side. Experts say captivity causes severe psychological damage to orcas, and the result? Well, you just saw it.
She suffered broken ribs, a broken sternum, dislocated elbow and knee, and abrasions on her upper back. The death of Dawn Brancheau is the result of drowning and traumatic injuries.
Still, SeaWorld claimed the animals were well treated and that Dawn had simply slipped and fallen. Later investigations and the Blackfish documentary told a very different story. The film included real footage, interviews with former staff, and details about Tilikum's behavior, clearly showing the whale was stressed, overwhelmed, and even injured. After years of public pressure and declining attendance, SeaWorld finally announced in 2016 that it would end its captive orca breeding programs. But for Dawn, it was too late. Xiao Li. In China, there's a wildlife park where visitors can observe Siberian tigers from inside their cars. The concept is simple. You drive in, move slowly, and watch the beauty of nature up close. But on July 23, 2016, this peaceful attraction that connects humans and nature took a deadly turn. Inside one of the vehicles, tourist Xiao Li and her family were having an argument. Frustrated, Xiao opened the door and stepped out of the car, right into the tiger area. Maybe she was confused, or maybe she thought it was safe, but the tigers didn't see it that way. One of them suddenly leapt out from the shadows and dragged her away. As Xiao screamed, her mother ran after her to try and help. It was an act of pure love, but it only made things worse. Another tiger appeared and attacked the mother, killing her instantly. The entire scene was captured by the park's security cameras. Xiao survived with serious injuries, but her mother sadly did not. Patty Mcconnell. Hot springs deep in the wilderness are usually the perfect place to relax, surrounded by tall trees, warm water, and the quiet of nature. But on August 14, 1997, something horrifying happened. The peaceful Liard River Hot Springs Provincial Park became the scene of one of the most tragic and heroic stories ever recorded there. Patty Mcconnell, a mother from Texas, was on a road trip to Alaska with her kids. When she saw the park, she decided to stop and take a well-deserved break. Everything seemed perfect. To escape the crowds, Patty and her 13-year-old son, Kelly, walked down a wooden boardwalk, climbed a few steps, and found a more secluded pool. But their peace didn't last long. A sudden noise in the brush broke the silence. When Patty turned around, she saw a massive black bear staring them down. Before she could react, the bear charged. In seconds, it was on top of Patty, knocking her to the ground as she fought for her life. That's when Kelly showed incredible bravery. He threw himself at the bear, but he was just a 13-year-old boy going up against a 550-pound animal. When that didn't work, he did something even bolder. He kicked the bear in the face, but that only made the bear angrier. With one huge swipe, the bear hit Kelly, grabbed him by the waist, and tossed him like a rag doll. The noise of the attack caught the attention of other park visitors, including a man named Ray Kitchen. Ray didn't hesitate. He ran straight toward the bear and tried to fight it off with his bare hands. During the struggle, the bear shoved Ray off the boardwalk, and the two of them tumbled down a hill. Tragically, Ray didn't survive. Another visitor tried to help and was also seriously injured. The situation only came to an end when 2 men with guns arrived and put the bear down. But by then, the damage was done. Patty Mcconnell died at the scene, but she fought until her last breath to protect her son. Kelly survived despite his serious injuries, and Ray Kitchen, the man who ran toward danger even though it cost him his life, became a national symbol of heroism in Canada. Timothy Treadwell. This is without a doubt one of the most intense and well-known stories about human interaction with wildlife. And as unbelievable as it sounds, it really happened. Timothy Treadwell wasn't a biologist or a scientist, but he became famous around the world for doing something almost no one else would dare, living among wild bears. For 13 straight summers, he camped deep inside Katmai National Park in Alaska, completely alone, surrounded by grizzly bears weighing up to 1,800 pounds. And he didn't just observe them. Timothy spoke to them, gave them nicknames, and even touched them.
Hi, how are you? you. Don't you do that. Don't you do that.
Many saw him as reckless, others saw him as deeply passionate. But the truth is, he ignored every basic rule of wildlife safety, and he knew it. He always set up his tent too close to the animals, often in restricted areas. And in 2003, his faith in the bears led to a tragedy. That year, Timothy went back to Katmai once more, this time with his girlfriend, Amy Huguenard. October is a dangerous month. The bears are desperate to bulk up before hibernation, which makes them hungry, aggressive, and completely unpredictable. Still, Timothy decided to stay one more week. He wanted to find one particular bear, a female he had named. That decision cost both of them their lives. On October 6th, pilot Willie Fulton flew in to pick them up, but saw no sign of life. What he did see was a massive bear eating something on the ground, something that looked human. He landed the plane safely and alerted park rangers. When rescue teams arrived, they were immediately charged by an aggressive bear still circling the campsite. Unfortunately, they had no choice but to shoot it on the spot, and that's when the horrible truth came out. The bear had killed and eaten both Timothy and Amy. Among their belongings, investigators found a camera, and on it, the last 6 minutes of Timothy's life. The lens cap was on, so there's no video, but the audio captured every horrifying second. For nearly the entire time, Timothy was still alive and conscious.
In the rain, and I hear, Amy, get away, go away. Turn it up.
In this video, we saw how unforgiving nature can be. It doesn't care about rules or love. In just 1 second, you can go from being a spectator to being prey. And hey, if you enjoy these kinds of stories, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your suggestion for our next video. See you next time.